And of course, where we left off is we'd started exploring some texturing, right? The big thing I wanted to show you guys really was the fact that, when you actually lay out your UVs for your tires to be purely rectangles, that's where that rectify text tools add-on comes in handy. When you find a cool pattern, you can paint it on there and it goes on, quite cleanly, right? Kind of the idea behind that. And we get to the texturing area and you can paint in your UV editor, right? And we're just kind of going through the process of making sure tell the texture you want to paint on. Usually it's not on by default, so you have to kind of tell it there. Make sure you're in paint mode instead of view mode. Kind of a few things there. But that all your brushes still work the same in here. You can paint with stencils or stamps in here two-dimensionally. And of course, you can grab the little bar here to kind of make whatever part you want bigger or smaller, right? So kind of those little things right there. Just as quick little side notes. And of course, one of the things you could do is you can, and this is the texture paint workspace, right? One of the great things, we have these workspaces up here. In this case, I want to do a little bit more with materials today. Like I said, I'm going to keep it a little shorter today since the last video was longer. And we'll finish this stuff up next week also. So I'm going to go to shading. And shading, of course, has Eevee on for us already, right? So you can see the viewport shading already has Eevee on. If we want, I always like to turn bloom on, because even if I don't have glow, bloom will still allow your metals to kind of catch the light a little bit more. But of course, Eevee is the viewport shading, right? Because this is our regular shader. That's Eevee. And of course, we can go to our little kind of, like I said, it looks like a briefcase and a microwave at the same time, right? The icon for this one. And you see the render engine it's using is Eevee right now, right? And that's our real-time previewer, right? Our real-time viewport renderer. And Blender's Eevee is quite good. Cycles is its full render, and we'll look at that a little bit more next week, right? When we want to kind of dial this in a little bit more, get some better lighting for it. But Eevee is a pretty nice real-time renderer. And usually you can kind of use this one. That one is the one I use more for full cycles because it'll do like the full highest quality render even with Eevee or cycles. But I just kind of want to remind you guys of those things. Of course, remember your little kind of magenta colored sphere down here is your material, and the magenta checkerboard is kind of your texture, right? If you want to load a texture in for brushes and things like that. And you see we've got something plugged into our color map, right? And that's one of those things where we might decide that we don't want that in the color map, right? So remember, you can have it in your color map, but you could also plug it into different channels in your material. That's what's cool about this little shader when you go to shading, is it shows you your network of your material and any textures that are plugged into it. And you'll see there are other controls down here, like normal or tangent, right, that you can plug stuff into to get a certain result. Right, so I could always take this color and I could always plug it into a different channel down here. Let me actually maybe move that up a little bit more so we can see a little better. So I could always take that color and we could always plug it into, in this case, let's see, tangent, I think, or is it normal? I can never remember. I think it might be normal. There we go. Yeah, normal. And you see it actually will plug this in as a bump node, right? Now, one of the things you could do is you can actually plug in a further controller for that. You can even unconnect it from the color so you can kind of see it better. In this case, I feel like we've got it plugged in. I can never remember correctly. I usually use normal maps. There we go. Let's see. So we might come back to that next week to just show that a little bit more. But kind of you have these different controls that you can plug stuff into. And you can also, of course, go to Add. And there is, I'm trying to remember where it's at, Vector. And you see you can go to bump, right? And you'll notice when you add this node, you see how when you put it over kind of the line highlights white? Because what it'll do is it'll plug that in to give you control over strength, distance, all those controls if you want to for playing around with it, right? You can kind of see this is plugged into the normal channel. And you can kind of plug it into the different channels here to get different results. I really feel like it does go into normal. I think I might be missing something. I almost always use normal maps for this stuff, so, but I did want to kind of start to get you guys to see some of these things, and I think we'll come back to it a little bit more next week to kind of fine-tune it. So for now, I'll kind of maybe just delete that for the moment. Plug that back into the color channel for us, just to kind of have that. Base color, there we go. So just kind of wanted to get that, show you that you guys could start to explore that. I can't remember what's going on right there, and I don't want to waste the video problem solving it at the moment, right? That'll kind of be the thing I can address a little bit more again in another video. Like I said, I pretty much always use normal maps because I'm doing sculpting on stuff. So I'll have to refresh myself. But what I did want to do is start to explore setting up some materials with you guys, right? One of the things we want to start to do is kind of go to our rims, right? And I can click on those rims. And you see the rims are using that tires material, right? Because they started off as the same object, so they're using that same material. So what I could do is, even right inside of the shading menu, right here, you'll notice that there is this little area called New Material. So what I can do is I can click on that, and we can call this rims. There we go. And one of the things we could do also is just to make sure, kind of over here, make sure to kind of fully select that. Let's see here. I'm trying to remember how to, where's the control for applying it to the selected polygons. I'm trying to remember. Should have just already gone on there already. Actually, I think it did, and it's just the tire's texture still plugged in. That's right. There we go. So, yeah, usually when you just create a new material, what's an object selected, it'll just add it. But it does kind of copy the texture that it already had plugged in. So you just kind of click on that node, delete. So now you can see we have a whole new material here, right? And one of the things you could do is, of course, you could control all of these right here. So remember, when you make a new material, it will automatically assign it if you're in object mode. You just might have to get rid of the texture because it kind of was already trying to plug that in, all right? So yeah, so now you can see there's a different material because we can kind of see it's that white, right? It's not showing the tire texture anymore. Of course, I could go in here and I could make the color a little bit darker if I wanted to. And you'll notice that you can, all of the controls that are in the little magenta area here, right, are the same controls here. And this is kind of that principled BSDF, which is, I want to say it's the Pixar kind of high-end material. So it's a nice material, right? It's got tons of controls in here. Subsurface scattering's built in. You get the metallic sliders. In fact, that's one of the things we want to do, but you'll notice it's all here. And you can, of course, plug in textures to all of these. And we've seen that before in our previous projects. So in this case, I do want to bring the metallic up on that, right? Because we do want this to kind of have that nice kind of chrome appearance. Now, oftentimes I will kind of go into the little V pull down here, turn on scene lights, just so we can see the scene lights a little bit more. We want to also make sure to turn down roughness, right? Because we want this to be pretty chrome. So metallic pretty high, roughness should be a lot lower. And you see how as we do that, it becomes a lot more kind of reflective, right? And of course, the color modulates that, so we can always turn that base color up a little bit more. And you see how you can kind of get like a nice kind of chromish rim. But if you want it to be kind of more of a rough metal, right, roughness, and if you want it to be more reflective, you turn that down. So metallic is really going to allow the material to look a lot more reflective. It takes on, the reflection takes on a lot more of the base color itself, which metals tend to have that property. If you were doing like a reflective plastic, you would keep metallic 0 and use specular instead, right? Specular won't affect metallic that much, but if this was kind of, if we did turn metallic down to 0 and turn specular up, see how it looks more like a plastic, like a highly reflective plastic. So specular controls are more for kind of your normal reflective surfaces that aren't metals, right? Whereas metallic is specifically for something that's going to be a metal, right? So metallic and specular are part of the specular properties, which really just means shininess or reflection, right? So you're really controlling the shininess of an object, right? If you want it to be a fabric that's cloth that's not shiny at all, you should have your specular and your metallic down to 0, right? In this case, we're going for more metal, so we don't really need specular on at all. But we do want metallic up pretty high. Although you see how even that you can control, so you can have it less and less metallic, more metallic. And roughness controls how reflective that metallic property is. So you can kind of get more of like that brushed metal effect. So it's part of one of the big things I wanted to start addressing with you guys is how to just start to do that, right? So pretty straightforward, easy. I've kind of already teased this earlier, but I did want to do it in official video form, right? Now, in this case, of course, we can go up to the car body. And I'm going to do this for that and the door, right? I think we'll maybe do the trunk, roof, and hood with something different, and we'll kind of address that more next week because I don't want to go on too long today. So I could select all of those objects, and of course, with shading already open, I could just click on New, and there it is, and I could say, let's call this car body, right? There we go, it's got a name. And of course, I could go to base color here. Like I said, you could do it here as well, right? So all of these controls are right here also, but you have them there. So I'm going to go to base color. I'm going to kind of make this more of a red. Let's see. I should go for all of them. Let's see. Let's make sure. Sometimes if it doesn't attach to multiple objects, what you could do is you could easily click on the other object, right? So I can click on the body. And you'll notice right next to new, there's this kind of what looks like a checkerboard sphere. If you click on that, you'll notice all your options are there. So you see how you can just add the material just by going to the pull down of the ones that already exist, right? So remember, once a material is created, you can add it to an object just by clicking on this little ball next to the name of the material and say, hey, I want this to be rims, right? Or tires, which is going on really bad because we didn't UV unwrap the body of the car properly, or car body, right? So pretty easy. Once you've created material, you can actually assign it to multiple different objects. So we've got that. We've got kind of red for the car. We're going to scroll down, bring that specular down a lot, turn that metallic up a lot, bring that roughness down, right, to start to get it much more shine. Clear coat usually is good for car bodies because it does kind of give this extra level of sheen to it, right? You kind of see how your reflection kind of takes on a slight blue tint to it. So it's a kind of a combination of kind of dialing in your metallic, right? Cars are pretty reflective, but they're not super reflective. So you just kind of dial in maybe metallic at about halfway or a little bit more halfway, roughness pretty low, get some clear coat on there, right? And of course you can control clear coat roughness as well. So that has its own roughness slider which works similar. And you can start to see that the car body material starts to look like a car body material, right? We got some chrome on the rims. So I just kind of want to start to get us to see that. We're going to start to add, of course, window materials and probably kind of a much more matte kind of maybe kind of version for these right here. That'll maybe be like more of like a dark gray. But I figure that'll be something cool to kind of save for next week, right? Because Monday I definitely want to go through and kind of throw a few more materials on, maybe dial the tires in a little bit better, and show you guys how to get the full render setup with the skylight features that Blender has. So I think that'll be a great place to stop this video. Like I said, we'll kind of come back in and dial up the texture stuff more next time.